My name is Oliver, and I'm 34 years old. I live in a quiet suburb of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My journey here has been a roller coaster, full of highs and lows, but it all started 10 years ago when I first met Linda. Linda and I were in our senior year at Penn State when we met. I was studying finance, and she was majoring in marketing. We were each other's first loves, and our connection felt magical. We got married right after graduation, full of dreams and hopes for our future. We bought a cozy house in the suburbs, imagining it would be our forever home. In the beginning, our life was perfect. We had a routine that worked for us, mornings together over coffee, workdays and evenings spent watching our favorite shows or having dinner with friends. Linda's job as a marketing manager was demanding, but she was passionate about it. I had just started my career as a financial analyst, and I was equally driven. However, things started to shift after a couple of years. I began noticing small changes in Linda. She was always on her phone, often smiling at messages she wouldn't share with me. At first, I brushed it off, thinking it was just work-related or chats with friends. But the distance between us grew. Our conversations became shorter, our laughter less frequent. One night, I decided to address it. "Linda, who are you always chatting with on your phone?" asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "It's just work stuff, Oliver. Don't worry about it," she replied, not meeting my eyes. I wanted to believe her, but a nagging feeling in my gut told me something was off. Over the next few months, Linda's behavior became more secretive. She started staying late at work and going out with friends more often. Tried to dismiss my suspicions, but the emotional distance was undeniable. We began arguing more frequently, often about trivial things that would escalate quickly. One evening, after another heated argument, I couldn't take it anymore. "Linda, what's going on? You're so distant. Are you hiding something from me?" I demanded. She looked at me, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. But she quickly masked it. "There's nothing, Oliver. You're just overthinking." Wanted to believe her so badly. After all, we had built a life together, and I couldn't imagine it falling apart. But the unease never left me. It all came crashing down a few weeks later. Accidentally saw a message on her phone from a man named Tom, a wealthy entrepreneur she had met on Facebook. The messages were explicit, leaving no room for doubt. My heart sank as I confronted her. "Who is Tom, Linda? And don't lie to me," I said, my voice trembling. She hesitated, then sighed. "He's just a friend, Oliver. We talk sometimes. That's all. Just a friend." "These messages don't look like they're from just a friend, Linda. Tell me the truth," I insisted. Finally, she broke down. "Okay, yes, we've been talking a lot. It started as a friendship, but it's more than that now. I'm sorry." My world shattered. This was the woman I had pledged my life to. And now, she was confessing to an emotional affair. I was angry, hurt, and confused all at once. She promised to end it and work on our marriage. But deep down, I wasn't sure if I could trust her anymore. Despite her promises, things didn't improve. Linda continued seeing Tom secretly, growing colder and more distant by the day. Our marriage felt like a sinking ship, and I was desperately trying to plug the holes. I was facing an obstacle I never thought I'd encounter: betrayal from the person I loved most. It was a gut-wrenching, soul-crushing experience, and I felt completely lost. But this was just the beginning of my journey, one that would test my resilience and push me to my limits. In hindsight, that period of my life was a turning point. It forced me to confront my deepest fears and insecurities, and set the stage for the changes that were to come. But at that moment, all I could feel was the unbearable weight of heartbreak. The weeks following Linda's confession were a blur. Tried to focus on my job as a financial analyst, but my mind was constantly distracted. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart raced, fearing it might be another revelation about Linda's affair. My productivity at work plummeted, and I began missing deadlines, something that had never happened before. At home, the tension was unbearable. Linda and I barely spoke, and when we did, it always ended in an argument. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, constantly trying to avoid triggering another fight. I couldn't understand how the woman I loved so deeply could become so distant and cold. One evening, after another argument, I decided to confront her once and for all. "Linda, we can't keep going like this. We need to talk." Linda sighed, avoiding eye contact. "What is there to talk about, Oliver? We've been over this." "No, we haven't," I insisted. "You promised to end things with Tom and work on our marriage, but nothing's changed. You're still distant, and I can't shake the feeling that you're hiding something." She finally looked at me, her expression a mix of guilt and defiance. "I told you, Oliver, I'm trying, but it's complicated." "Complicated?" I echoed, frustration boiling over. "What's complicated about keeping your promise? Either you're committed to fixing our marriage, or you're not." Linda's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with. "I'm sorry, Oliver. I thought I could do this, but I can't. I have feelings for Tom, and I don't know how to turn them off." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and betrayal. "So, what are you saying? Do you want a divorce?" Linda hesitated, then nodded. "I think it's for the best. We're both miserable, and it's not fair to either of us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Just a few years ago, we were planning our future together, and now she wanted to throw it all away. But deep down, I knew she was right. Our marriage was broken, and no amount of effort on my part could fix it if she wasn't willing to try. "Fine," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "If that's what you want, then let's get a divorce." The next few weeks were a nightmare. We filed for an uncontested divorce, agreeing to split our assets and go our separate ways. Linda moved in with Tom, and I was left alone in our once happy home. The silence was deafening, and I struggled to adjust to my new reality. One night, I was sitting on the couch, staring at the empty space where Linda used to sit. I felt a wave of loneliness wash over me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do. My thoughts spiraled, and I began questioning everything: my worth, my ability to trust, and whether I could ever be happy again. In a desperate attempt to distract myself, I reached out to some old college friends. We met up for drinks, and while it was nice to catch up, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness. Realized that I needed to find a way to heal, to rebuild my life from the ground up. I decided to focus on myself. I started going to the gym regularly, trying to channel my anger and sadness into something productive. I also signed up for a few evening classes, hoping to finish my degree in finance. It was a way to keep myself busy and work towards a goal. As the months passed, I slowly began to find a new rhythm. I made new friends at the gym and in my classes, people who didn't know about my past and the pain I was carrying. It was refreshing to have a clean slate, to be just Oliver, without the baggage of a failed marriage. But despite my efforts, there were still nights when the loneliness crept in. I'd find myself scrolling through old photos of Linda and me, remembering the good times and wondering where it all went wrong. It was a constant battle between holding on to the past and trying to move forward. One evening, I received a text from Linda. "Can we talk?" it read. Hesitated, unsure if I was ready to face her again. But curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet. We chose a small cafe that we used to visit, a place filled with memories. When I arrived, Linda was already there, looking more stressed and tired than I'd ever seen her. She smiled weakly as I sat down. "Hi, Oliver. Thanks for meeting me." "Hi, Linda," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "What did you want to talk about?" She took a deep breath, tears welling up in her eyes. "I made a mistake, Oliver. Leaving you, moving in with Tom. It was all a mistake. He's not the person I thought he was. He's been abusive, and I finally left him." Her confession stunned me. I had imagined many scenarios, but this wasn't one of them. "I'm sorry to hear that, Linda. I really am." She wiped her tears, looking at me with a mix of regret and longing. "I know I hurt you, and I can never undo that. But I wanted you to know that I never stopped loving you. I lost my way." Hearing her say those words stirred something inside me, but I knew better than to let my guard down. "I appreciate your honesty, Linda. I do. But things can't go back to the way they were. Too much has happened." Linda nodded, her expression sad but understanding. "I know. I just needed to tell you." We sat in silence for a while, sipping our coffee and reflecting on the twists and turns of our lives. It was a bittersweet moment, a reminder of what we once had and what was lost. As we parted ways, I felt a strange sense of closure. Linda and I were different people now, shaped by our experiences and mistakes. It was time to move forward, to focus on my own healing and happiness. And so I did. I continued working on myself, pursuing my goals, and building a life that made me proud. It wasn't easy, but with each passing day, I felt a little stronger, a little more like the person I wanted to be. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. And that, I realized, was the most important thing of all. Life had a funny way of surprising you when you least expected it. After my meeting with Linda, I felt a strange sense of closure. It was as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I knew I had a long way to go, but I was ready to embrace the future with a renewed sense of hope. My routine at the gym and evening classes became my sanctuary. It was there that I met people who shared my interests and were going through their own struggles. One of those people was Jake, a fellow financial analyst who had recently gone through a divorce himself. We bonded over our shared experiences, and he became a close friend and confidant. One evening, after a particularly intense workout, Jake and I decided to grab a drink at a nearby bar. As we settled into a booth, he turned to me and said, "You know, Oliver, I've been thinking. Why don't we start a side project together? Something to take our minds off things and maybe even make some extra cash." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What kind of project?" Jake leaned in, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I've been working on this financial planning app. It's something that could really help people manage their money better. With your experience and my tech skills, I think we could make it something great." The idea sparked something in me. I had been feeling adrift, and this seemed like a perfect opportunity to channel my energy into something productive. "I'm in," I said, feeling a surge of motivation. "Let's do it." Over the next few weeks, Jake and I worked tirelessly on the app. We spent countless evenings brainstorming, designing, and coding. It was challenging, but it also gave me a sense of purpose that I had been missing. We named the app FinBuddy, and as we made progress, began to feel a sense of pride and accomplishment that had been absent from my life for so long. One night, while we were working at Jake's place, he suddenly looked up from his laptop. "Oliver, I just realized we haven't really talked about your love life since the divorce. Have you thought about dating again?" I sighed, leaning back in my chair. "Honestly, I haven't given it much thought. After everything with Linda, I needed time to heal, but I guess I'm starting to feel ready to put myself out there again." Jake grinned. "Well, it's about time, man. You're a catch, and there are plenty of people out there who would be lucky to have you." Appreciated his encouragement, but the idea of dating again was daunting. However, I knew it was a step I needed to take. That weekend, I decided to create a profile on a dating app. It felt strange and awkward at first, but I reminded myself that it was just another way to meet new people. A few days later, I received a message from a woman named Sarah. She was 32, a graphic designer, and lived just a few miles away. We exchanged a few messages and quickly realized we had a lot in common. She loved hiking, just like me, and had a quirky sense of humor that made me laugh. After a week of chatting, we decided to meet for coffee. As I walked into the cafe, I felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. Sarah was already there, sitting by the window and looking just as nervous as I felt. "Hi, Sarah," I said, approaching her table. She looked up and smiled. "Oliver, it's nice to finally meet you in person." We talked for hours, sharing stories about our lives, our interests, and our dreams for the future. It felt effortless, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a genuine connection with someone new. As we walked out of the cafe, Sarah turned to me and said, "I had a great time, Oliver. We should do this again." I smiled, feeling hopeful. "I'd like that, Sarah. I'd like that a lot." Over the next few months, Sarah and I continued to see each other. Our relationship grew steadily, and it felt healthy and balanced. She was supportive of my work with Jake on FinBuddy, and I admired her dedication to her own career. Meanwhile, FinBuddy was gaining traction. We launched a beta version, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. People appreciated the simplicity and effectiveness of the app, and we began to see a steady increase in users. One evening, as Jake and I were celebrating the app's success over beers, he turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Oliver, it's amazing to see how far you've come. You've rebuilt your life in such a short time." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride. "It's been a journey, Jake, but having good friends like you has made all the difference." Jake smiled. "Well, here's to new beginnings and even greater successes." We clinked our glasses, and I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. Life was far from perfect, but I was learning to navigate its ups and downs with resilience and hope. And for the first time in a long while, I felt truly happy. As I looked around the bar, surrounded by new friends and possibilities, I realized that sometimes the most unexpected turns lead to the most rewarding journeys, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next, one step at a time. Things were going well, almost too well. FinBuddy was steadily growing, and Sarah and I were getting closer every day. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. It all started on a typical Tuesday morning. I was at the office, going through my emails, when I noticed a message from Jake. The subject line read, "Urgent, security breach." My heart sank. I quickly opened the email and read through it. "Oliver, we have a problem. Someone managed to get into our server last night. We need to figure out what data was accessed and how they got in. Can you come over ASAP, Jake?" I grabbed my coat and headed straight to Jake's place. When I arrived, he was already knee-deep in code, his face a mix of frustration and concentration. "Hey, Jake," I said, trying to stay calm. "What's the damage?" Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's bad, Oliver. They managed to access user data, names, emails, even some financial info. We need to act fast before this gets out of hand." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. This was the kind of situation that could make or break a startup. "All right, let's get to work. We need to secure the server, notify our users, and figure out how to prevent this from happening again." We spent the next 48 hours working non-stop. Every minute counted, and the pressure was intense. Sarah called to check on me, and I explained the situation. "Do you need anything? Can I bring you some food?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "That would be great, Sarah. Thanks. I'll take anything at this point," I replied, grateful for her support. She showed up an hour later with sandwiches and coffee. "You guys need to eat," she said, setting the food on the table. "How's it going?" "It's rough," Jake admitted, "but we're making progress. Thanks for bringing this." Sarah smiled, giving my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "Hang in there, both of you." As the crisis unfolded, I realized just how much Sarah meant to me. She was my rock, always there when I needed her. It was a stark contrast to the way things had been with Linda. Eventually, we managed to secure the server and sent out notifications to our users. The damage was contained, but the experience left us shaken. Jake and I knew we had to work even harder to regain our users' trust. A few days later, I met Sarah for dinner. I needed to unwind and talk about something other than FinBuddy. As we sat down at our favorite Italian place, I couldn't help but feel grateful for her presence in my life. "So," Sarah said, taking a sip of her wine, "how are you holding up?" "I'm all right," I replied, smiling. "It was a rough week, but we managed." "Just glad it's over." Sarah nodded. "I'm proud of you, Oliver. You handled the situation really well." "Thanks, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without you. Your support means everything to me." She reached across the table and took my hand. "You're doing great, Oliver, and FinBuddy is going to be just fine. You and Jake have built something amazing." Her words were exactly what I needed to hear. As we talked about our future plans, I felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. Life was unpredictable, but with Sarah by my side, I knew I could handle whatever came my way. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Linda. It was unexpected, to say the least. "Hi, Oliver. I hope you're doing well. I heard about FinBuddy's security breach. If you need any advice or help, let me know. Linda." I stared at the message, unsure how to feel. It was strange hearing from her after all this time, especially given the circumstances. I decided to reply, keeping it brief. "Thanks, Linda. We've got it under control, but I appreciate the offer. Hope you're doing well too. Oliver." As the days passed, I focused on moving forward. Jake and I tightened our security protocols, and we even started working on new features for FinBuddy. Our users appreciated our transparency and efforts to make things right, which was a huge relief. One evening, Sarah and I went for a walk in the park. It was one of those perfect summer nights with a gentle breeze and the scent of flowers in the air. As we strolled along the path, Sarah looked at me with a serious expression. "Oliver, there's something I've been meaning to tell you," she said, her voice soft. I stopped and turned to face her. "What is it, Sarah?" She took a deep breath. "I've been offered a job in San Francisco. It's a great opportunity, but I don't want to make any decisions without talking to you first." My heart skipped a beat. San Francisco was across the country. Wow, that's amazing, Sarah. But what does it mean for us? I don't know, she admitted. I love you, Oliver, and I don't want to lose what we have. But this job, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, I wanted to support her dreams. On the other, the thought of her moving so far away was painful. I understand, Sarah. This is important for you, and I want you to be happy. We'll figure it out. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Thank you, Oliver. I knew you'd understand. We'll find a way to make this work. I promise. As we walked back to the car, I couldn't help but feel a sense of uncertainty. Life was throwing another curveball, but I was determined to face it head-on. With Sarah's love and Jake's friendship, I knew I could handle whatever came next. And so, with a mix of hope and apprehension, I prepared for the next chapter of my life, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, something comes along to shake things up. That's exactly what happened to me after Sarah told me about her job offer in San Francisco. The weeks following our conversation were a whirlwind. Sarah and I spent every moment we could together, savoring the time we had left before her potential move. We talked about everything, our dreams, our fears, and what the future might hold for us. One evening, we decided to have dinner at my place. As we sat on the couch, finishing up our takeout, Sarah looked at me with a thoughtful expression. Oliver, I've been thinking a lot about us, she said, her voice steady. I know this job is a big opportunity for me, but I don't want it to come between us. I want to make this work. Took her hand in mine. I want that too, Sarah. We've been through so much together, and I don't want to lose you. But I also don't want you to miss out on something amazing because of me. She squeezed my hand. Maybe we don't have to choose. What if we try long distance for a while? See how it goes. We can visit each other on weekends, and who knows, maybe one of us will end up moving eventually. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief. That sounds like a plan. Let's give it a shot. We've come this far, and I believe we can make it work. With our decision made, we focused on enjoying the time we had left in Philadelphia. We visited all our favorite spots, from the small coffee shop on the corner to the park where we had our first picnic. Each moment felt precious, and we made the most of it. Meanwhile, things at Finbuddy were getting back on track. The security breach had been a wake-up call, and Jake and I were more determined than ever to make our startup a success. We implemented new security measures and even started working on a few innovative features that we hoped would set us apart from the competition. One afternoon, as I was deep into coding a new feature, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Linda. Hesitated before opening it, unsure of what to expect. Hi, Oliver. I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation. I know things ended badly between us, and I've had a lot of time to reflect. If you're open to it, I'd like to meet up and talk. No pressure, just a conversation. Linda. I stared at the message for a while. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep moving forward without looking back, but another part of me knew that closure could be important. I decided to meet her, hoping it would help me finally close that chapter of my life. We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe in town. When I arrived, Linda was already there, looking a bit nervous. I took a deep breath and walked over to her table. Hi, Linda, I said, sitting down. It's been a while. Hi, Oliver, she replied, offering a small smile. Thanks for meeting me. We talked for a long time, discussing everything that had happened between us. Linda apologized for the way things ended, And I found myself forgiving her, not just for her sake, but for mine. It was a strange feeling, letting go of the past and making peace with it. As I left the cafe, I felt a sense of closure. I knew I was ready to fully embrace my future, without the shadows of my past holding me back. That evening, I met Sarah at the park. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over everything. We walked hand in hand, enjoying the tranquility. "How did it go with Linda?" Sarah asked, glancing at me. "It went well," I said, nodding. "We talked, and I feel like I finally have some closure. I'm ready to move on." Sarah smiled, leaning into me. "I'm glad, Oliver. You deserve to be happy." As we walked, I realized how far I'd come since my marriage with Linda ended. I'd faced countless challenges, both personally and professionally, but I'd grown stronger because of them. With Sarah by my side and a bright future ahead, I felt ready for whatever came next. And so, as we stood there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. Life was unpredictable, but I'd learned to embrace it, to find joy in the journey and strength in the challenges. If you found our story interesting, please subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to give us a like. Thanks for watching. See you all soon.